Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Outcomes from the Counter podcast. I'm John Grice. I'm your host, and I've got an interesting topic for us to discuss today. So I was posed with the question, how do you know, or what should you do when you need to switch systems in your pharmacy? We refer to them as PMS, Pharmacy Management Software, or Pharmacy Management Systems, and it's usually the brain of your entire pharmacy. So how do you switch that out? What all needs to go into a decision that big? Most of the time, your PMS is holding what feels like everything. It's got the gateway for how e-scripts come into your store. It's got all of the files and notes about doctors and patients. It's definitely got all of the drugs. Every drug you use probably has inventory levels, reorder points, pricing, price files, all of that kind of stuff. Man, they contain everything, it seems like, especially if they're even a part of your point of sale system. Then it's running not just the back of the pharmacy, but it has some sway on everything out front too. So how do you know? When do you switch? How do you switch? I'm going to do my best. I had some notes. I wanted to jot them down, and I thought this would be a good topic to put some first thoughts out there. But I am really interested in hearing feedback. I really appreciate anybody who has reached out, given me thoughts. And so the way I organized my thoughts was really around one big key theme, and that is if you're wondering, you got to look. So if you've ever had the thought as you're sitting there behind the counter, either something went down and it shouldn't have, or something keeps glitching up and it takes you time to have to go back and fix it. There's all sorts of problems with software systems, and every pharmacy system I've heard about or used myself has its own unique ones. But in those unique glitches and hitches are problems that are sometimes a bigger deal for your pharmacy than to others maybe. And so if you're feeling friction, if you've got an issue and it doesn't seem to get fixed by the vendor and continues to either bog you down, stop you, or is just a frustration that you feel like mentally you've had to just accept, then there's something happening that you need to know about and address. And that is, a lot of times it's causing a sense of, I can't do anything about it. And that sentiment, at least from a pharmacist, being myself in that position before, it changes the way you interact with your own staff, definitely with your customers. And you pick the fights that you enter into with maybe a claim that won't go through or an issue here or there. You pick them differently. You fight them differently. And maybe at the end of the day, you're not taking up some of the efforts that you should. And it might all be stemming back to this unwinnable feeling that you have with this problem in your PMS software. I've been there myself. Maybe it's not everybody's experience, but it has been mine, and so that's why I share it, to say, you got to get the fire back. And maybe your research will conclude that, no, I've got the best system out there. I'm happy where I'm at, and I'm not going to make that switch. But at least you took the effort to say, I owe it to myself, my team, my patients, to get myself back in a state of mind where I can go after it, and I do feel confident every day. So anyways, that's the big overarching, kind of a psychological play, but you gotta be aware of it inside yourself before you will end up doing anything about it. But if that's happening, okay, so step one is, yep, I've got this problem. It keeps going on. It makes me frustrated, and then that frustration taints maybe my entire day or a week. How do you then do your research? Well, sales, everybody's got a sales arm. Every vendor will be more than happy to give you a demo and talk through their offering. So first step is to reach out and figure out the capabilities of the different systems you've heard about. You've probably got some peers who use other systems, and starting with a conversation with them might be the first step. My guess is you already had that as your first step. And so reaching out to the vendors to learn about, can you do everything I need done? Making sure that breadth of abilities that their system has checks all the boxes. There's not something key that you and your store are doing that they can't do. You might have to learn new ways of doing certain things, but as long as they can do it, then you're okay to keep moving forward. So it's got to have the breadth of abilities, and under The very next thing I would say is it's got to have speed. You can't have a system that's going to go slower than you do today. So make sure that whatever you're looking at, there's an emphasis on speed. It's been a funny history of pharmacy software because we went from speed to usability. So and we're going back to speed, and I'm excited about that. But everybody from the older generation knows how fast you could go when you had keys on keyboard all day long. You could fly when you had hotkeys and macros to run prescriptions through. And things slowed down when we moved away from that to go to a mouse. But they looked better, and they absolutely came with a few more bells and whistles. But sometimes the overall speed of data entry of pharmacist PV1, PV2 slowed down. And so we've got to get that speed back because now more than ever, the speed behind the counter is important. And so I'm excited because I can see the future coming in the form of automated data entry, AI doing some of our PV1s, PV1, PV2 even. There's automation coming in pharmacy software that should be bringing speed back without giving up the user interface, that graphic that we're now used to looking at. The old DOS-based systems are hard to look at sometimes, but man, when they're fast and can do everything that needs done, they've stuck around this long because they're valuable in those ways. What's coming next, though, is also exciting, and that is, all right, how do we build on that bulletproof system and actually gain more speed and put in some user interface that's more attractive to look at? So I see that coming, and that should be something to look for. How do I get faster with this next system? So both abilities and speed, those are a big one. Next point, though, is trust. Do I trust this system? Can I trust this system? There's a lot of different ways to slice this. Some people will say it's got to be a server in my pharmacy. And I've heard many others say, absolutely not. I want that thing to be in the cloud, and I want to just have service level agreements that guarantee my uptime throughout a year. Depending on where your store is located, you might be in a rural town where I need my own server, or I don't trust my backup internet. That might not be at all part of the equation for you, and you say, I want that thing in the cloud so that I can access it from anywhere. A lot of different things to think through, but again, the main idea is not so much about how the server is set up, but more so about how do you trust it. If you can say, I know that the reports I get out of my system are accurate, and that lets me make good decisions every day, you're on the right track. But if you're not sure if the server is about to go down, or you're going to get kicked out of this particular function every time you access it, those goofy glitches and hitches, they'll make you doubt. And the more doubt that you have behind the counter, like I said, it's going to change the way you interact with your customers, and they'll sense that. And so trust in your system is key. Confidence was first. Trust is right there. And so make sure that you can pull reports, you can track inventory, pricing, and that you trust how all of those things are set up and then work together. Trust is key. And then last, I would say, is financial. Not because this is the last to be concerned about, but definitely because it's the most important point, I believe. If you might find the best system out there, but if it's the most expensive and your pharmacy just isn't in a spot where it can afford that level of expense, then you got to be real about that too, and just say, all right, my store has a budget of this, and I can afford a system of this caliber. That's what I need to accept, and then know that I got the best for my store that I could. And that might be different than somebody just 10 minutes down the street. That's okay. But knowing your financials in your store and then making the best financial decision is a part of it. Also, how those financials are arrived at are key. So pharmacies, every day you're working, you're filling scripts, you're generating data. You are producing data points with every script you fill, every insurance claim you send. And that data is valuable. Folks out there, whether they're industry aggregators or pharma companies, people want to know what's happening in pharmacy, and they pay for that data. And so if you are generating that data, someone is probably getting paid for that, and hopefully it's you. So just make sure that that's part of the conversation as you're evaluating the cost and the value proposition of a new system. Dig into how did they arrive at this bottom line number that I'm going to pay over the course of the year. It's going to be a mixture of software fees and maintenance fees, but then make sure that there's some credits in there for data sales, because odds are good they're selling your data. You just need to make sure that you're getting paid for it. Look for other incentives too. Are there different metrics I can do in the pharmacy that will improve that? If I'm filling more scripts, I generate more data, maybe I'll get paid more for data sales. But are there other pieces that I can bring to the table, like clinical services, that will somehow bring back credits because I'm more valuable to my pharmacy software system and their company than if I don't do those efforts? So look for the ways that you can better your own contract through the activities that you're already doing in the pharmacy, or through activities that you maybe thought about, could get into, just hadn't seen the impetus for them yet, because they might have more return than just simply transaction, dollars coming in for that service. It might be a data on that service that also produces value for you. So that's a key consideration, all under this third point about financials. How do you evaluate the financials of the system? But going back now to the kind of the big overarching idea, if you are wondering if you should, odds are good you need to start doing some research. If that research concludes, yeah, I don't have the best system and I need to make a switch, don't rush into it. It's not easy to do. But the duty you have as a pharmacist is to be in a positive, helpful frame of mind behind the counter. And so that's a big piece, is knowing I've got the best that I could have for this pharmacy, and that serves my patients well. Okay, we're there. You decided. Now you got to make the switch. How you going to do that? Let's talk through that just a little bit. There is no right. There might be some wrong answers, but I don't know that I've ever heard somebody say, here's the right answer. And so it's an art. I would say that switching software systems is an art, and you've got to be willing to learn new things. You've also got to be willing to go with your gut on some things. As you look at the size and the embeddedness that a software system is to your pharmacy, it obviously is no small consideration, but it takes careful planning. You've got to have a team, first of all, that's ready for it. If you are thinking that you can go into it and change out a software system and the team is unsure, maybe even doubtful about the new system that you've selected, pause, take a minute, think about that a little bit longer. It's either going to take some more salesmanship or convincing before you can get them believing in what you see, or maybe it's a red flag to say, okay, I might be overlooking something. Maybe I'm not valuing a particular component as highly as I should be, and they see that, and that's their source of concern. But either way, you're going to need the team. You've got to go through it with a team. You've got the team you have because you believe in them already, and so don't forget to include them in the decision itself. Once you think you've arrived at one, bring them into it, and then make sure that they're going to be in place as you go through it. The process of making a change is not a one overnight data translation, nor is it even a 1 year process and then it's all wrapped up and done. You're going to find that that's a ongoing process of what we used to do, and here's now what we do in the future. And so you've got to have a team that's with you, that's bought in, and so do what you need to do to evaluate. How are they feeling? How are they doing? How confident am I, or are they, that they'll be here with me after a month of the new change? Because that's going to be key. Finding a way to stick together as you go through it is important. So make sure you get your team around you. You all need to be in that positive headspace. If you're not today, that's a sign to begin looking. And then even once you have identified one and you're ready to make the change, you still have to do that same check-in and go, are we all together? It's kind of an all for one, one for all moment. And then you go. And odds are good. Your vendor has, the company you select has a lot of recommendations, a lot of training programs. They'll assign somebody to probably walk you through the conversion. And so they'll do everything in their power to help you be successful. But it always will come back to the pharmacist behind the counter. So make sure you're ready. Think about all those different categories we talked through. But at the end of the day, if that's what's renting space, if that's the question you're wondering, then start answering that for yourself, because as a pharmacist, you owe it to yourself and to your customers to show up every day with a confident sense of your system and what it's doing for you. So that's the best advice I've got on the topic. I can't wait to hear feedback, and hopefully it's a dialogue that we can open up and share some more thoughts, best practices. There's definitely people who've been through more of these than I have, so I'd love to hear what you all have to think too. So thanks so much, guys. Have a great rest of the day.